the thing that hasn't changed is the wonderful love the Filipino people have, the graciousness that they've always showed me. Showed up at Manila, and all the sounds and everything of my youth came back. I'm crying.
You're weeping up right now.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. It's like, and it was so funny. I'm sitting there and I'm going, I'm home, I'm home. Yeah. I knew that there was a huge amount of scammers. Yeah. Now, did I fall for them? Yes. I decided to get back online again, and that's when I met Ruby. It was kind of funny. I was almost like in spite. I was going to cheat on her. I was going to look because what she did to me. Yeah. And that's when I met Ruby.
That's when you met Ruby. Now, how did you meet Ruby?
I met her online, just, sending out requests and everything. Generally, a Filipino will pad their profile. Yeah. They'll be a little skinnier, they'll be a little taller. They'll take a picture out of a magazine, or you're dating a Hollywood actor.
Well, you've been out of the game for 20 years, but nowadays they have these filters.
Now it's and with AI, you can create anything you want. You can't trust anything now.
I tell people if they have 5 photos, the worst photo is who you want to meet. Yeah. That's who you meet.
But instantly, because I chatted with different girls and it was all the same. And you'd ask them what they're doing. It's like, oh, I'm just a homebody. I just stay home. Because you're trying to find out, what do they love? What are their dreams? Are they adventurous? Well, I clicked on with Ruby, and she was just feisty. She was spunky.
And you're 24-year age gap.
Yeah.
So you were roughly 50?
I was 52.
52?
And she was 28.
And she was 28.
Actually, 27.
And she previously married, had children?
She was, and these are, if I would have made a list of all the things that were requirements, she would have been marked off the list. Because she was still married and she had 2 kids.
Yeah. And so what do you say to men? There's a law here. You're not allowed to cohabitate with a married woman, and you could be thrown in jail. What is your take on it?
Well, that is all sort of true. The problem is they will use it against you to extort you for money.
Right.
Let's put it this way. There's a lawyer in Iligan that's driving a van.
That you paid for?
That I had to pay for.
Oh, no. Oh, because you had to pay for the annulment.
Yeah, because I was paying, and then I got threatened. Oh. Because we'd already rented a house and I'd moved her to Cagayan.
And her ex-husband threatened you?
I don't know how much was through the ex-husband or actually through the attorney.
Okay, so let's just, for the audience, because a lot of guys are like, oh, I'm talking to this girl, she's married, and she needs an annulment. And if I go there and I spend time with her, am I at risk? What do you say to those guys?
I didn't know about the risk until after I had done it. Now, if I'd have known about it before, I may have.
I
may have moved on. I may have.
So it's each case maybe individually.
You have to be aware. So,
but let me ask you this. What about a woman with children?
When I met my wife, it was a very sad situation. Her mother-in-law had kidnapped the kids.
You got a lot of drama going on here between the lawyer and the mother-in-law.
So she, her ex was living in Cebu. That's where she was living in Cebu. When they broke up, because he was beating her all the time and she had had enough. Yeah. She was afraid. She was afraid she was going to kill him and she was going to go to jail.
Wow.
And she got beat up, went to the police, reported it, photographs, medical to prove it. Then she took the kids and left and came back to Iligan.
So let's slow down. You met her online, you video chatted, everything was great. You knew she had children. Mm-hmm. She probably shared some of the drama that was going on in the background. Yeah. You felt like some chemistry there, and you just keep going forward, and then you come to the Philippines.
Yeah, I was really, the connection was so strong. Yeah. I couldn't wait to talk to her and see her again. That's what made my life possible.
Okay.
So I was still going through this trauma with this other girl. I hadn't come here and delivered the papers yet when I had just met Ruby right before I came.
Okay. So do you remember the hour of the day that you met Ruby? She met you at the airport?
Well, yeah. I had to go to China. Then I flew in, and she met me at the airport.
And what was that like?
And
were you worried she was going to think you were too old?
No, there was no worries at all.
52.
I was
66. I was really, really worried.
We were just unbelievably comfortable from the moment that we met.
Yeah, in person.
In person. There was never, even when we met online, there was a level of, companionship and comfort.
Now, what
and
about your friends and family back home? And they go, "Oh, she's just a gold digger. She's into it for the money. You know, there's too big of an age difference." Well,
I didn't have any of that direct problem. I do remember when I told my kids, and I told my youngest son, and he said, "Dad, just don't marry somebody younger than me." That was it.
I violated that rule.
So, you know, I have to admit, Ruby is older than my oldest child.
Yeah.
So just barely.
Just barely. Okay. So how did the romance proceed?
Well, flew in. She met me at the airport with her brother, chaperone. Now, me knowing the Filipino culture, I was not offended. That was a plus.
Yeah, right.
Because
right
some
kind of
girl
woman.
to just leave her family and come see some Kano and be with him, take care of him without, you know, because she's away from her family.
Sure.
You know, it's not like we're in her hometown and she can go home at night, right?
Yeah.
Not like I got a hotel and we visited during the day.
Yeah.
She was here.
Yeah.
So we spent a few days just enjoying ourselves, and then the brother left. And we went to Camiguin, spent a week or so in Camiguin. I flew back to Cebu to get all my stuff and close the apartment down. We stayed someplace else, but I got all the stuff organized and shipped it.
Now, Camiguin, for those people, is the island right in the bay here, which is a tourist white sand beach island, but not too much tourism. And a lot of people love it because it's really quiet.
It reminds me of Kauai.
Yeah.
You know, really high, dramatic mountains and waterfalls.
I love Kauai.
Doesn't have a lot of sandy beaches on the island. There's 2 sandy islands just off of the island, Mantigi and White Island, that are pretty spectacular. But we love the place, you know. We ended up with a place we would always go, and they have a row, which is roll on, roll off.
Yeah.
So when you have a car, you can just drive your car, put on the ferry, go across, and then when you get to the island, you have your own vehicle.
Yeah.
It's quite affordable. Really cool little restaurants.
So you went on a little honeymoon before the marriage?
Yeah, so we went there. We went to Cebu, and then we flew to Siargao, and we probably spent a month in Siargao.
Siargao is northeast Mindanao.
Yeah,
and it's the surfing capital.
Right, and it is spectacular place.
And it's the one place I haven't been.
Oh, hi. We'll have to get you over there. You know, I mean, I had property. I lived there for a long time.
So now you're going to talk about this later, but you bought property in Siargao. You made a fair amount of money on property.
Yeah.
But let's stay with your story of Ruby for now.
So anyway, we came back to Siargao. Then we came back here. We stayed at the chalets in Xavier Estates. Obviously, I'd been here for a couple of months by there, and we were just having a fabulous time.
Why Cagayan de Oro?
Because that's where the rafting was. I had already come here before on my previous trip in 2002.
And established.
I had flown down here, met the guys, and arranged everything. So when I was living in Lapu-Lapu, I was flying to Cagayan.
So was there a rafting business in Cagayan de Oro at all?
There was like 4 or 5 guys who were mountaineers. They climbed all these mountains here, and they heard about rafting. They got a guidebook, which is written by a really good friend of mine, actually. And they bought some stuff, and they were starting to do trips, but they didn't have the right equipment. They were running a very safe section of river, and they were doing fine, but they didn't know what they were doing. So I did a lot of guide training, brought in some proper equipment, brought in some experts on safety and rescue, trained all the guides and all of that stuff. And this was going on before I had met Ruby.
Before you met. And so rather than become partners with Filipinos, 40% partner, you leased the equipment to the...
Yeah, I guess you could say. I provided the equipment, and they paid a payment to me as they had trips.
Okay.
So I facilitated it, you know.
And nowadays, it's a big business, and it's known, Cagayan de Oro is known as the capital for whitewater rafting.
Before the pandemic, it was monstrous.
Yeah.
One of the things that Cagayan had developed was a huge conference industry. So there'd be an organization, they'd have a big old huge conference.
Yeah, the convention center, you can see it right here across the river.
At Price Plaza and all the hotels.
Yeah.
And so what happened is, because Mindanao was cheaper than the rest of the Philippines, you could come down here and have a conference and have all kinds of activities. Yeah. And rafting was one of the things that only they could offer.
Yeah.
because it actually was cheaper for somebody in Manila to fly to Cagayan than it really was to go to Baguio or to go to someplace else. So even the rafting companies in northern Luzon were more expensive because it was harder to get to than it was. They could fly down here when the airport was here, fly down in the morning, do a raft trip, and fly back at night for cheaper.
Because the airport used to be like 1 kilometer from here.
Yeah.
Lumbia, and it's a military base now, but it used to be right here.
Yeah, so it was perfect. So anyway, that's why so we chose Cagayan because she was from Iligan, I was in Lapu-Lapu, so this was a new start for both of us.
So Iligan is a 2-hour drive from here. So her family was 2 hours away.
Right.
That was about the right distance for family, you think?
Yeah, we could go visit them whenever they want to. If they really had to come see us, they could come see us, but it wasn't an everyday affair. But I love her family totally. So, and I was used to it. The whole family part and everybody coming and staying, it didn't bother me.
Yeah. And how old were her children when you met her?
The boy was 7 and the girl was 6.
Okay. If she had a 2-year-old, do you think it would have stopped you from going forward? No. So you raised her children.
I adopted those and I raised them, and those are my kids.
Okay. So how long did you date before you got engaged?
You know, I'm trying to remember the actual day of the engagement. It was probably 6 months or so, and I came back and forth a lot.
Right.
Like I came here. I left in February. We rented a house in River Grande, which is just down the road. Got all my stuff from Lapu-Lapu, from Cebu, moved it into that house, and then I left. And then I came back like 6 weeks later. That's when I told you I came back unannounced. I just showed up on the doorstep. And that was a little bit of a fun for me and a little bit of a test, you know. But I didn't tell you this, that when I first met her, the first day or maybe the second day we met, she put me through a test. Yeah. Where we're actually looking at the piece of land with a realtor that I ended up buying.
The first day you met her?
First day I met her.
How do you end up looking at land the first day you meet someone?
You know, I've always been interested in real estate. Well, so we're walking around Limkitkai Mall, and they have the little kiosks with the
subdivision.
And I knew that a realtor knows the place better than everybody else. She asked if I was interested, and I said, yeah, I'd like to see, but I'm interested in a lot. Yeah. Besides a condo, I'm interested in a lot, in a subdivision.
Is that the one you ended up at in Xavier?
Yeah. You know, I did some due diligence afterwards, but the funny thing is that it started off as a free tour of the city, because a realtor is going to know where's the best housing developments, where's the best hospitals, where's the best schools.
I used to own a real estate brokerage. I gave a lot of those free tours.
Yeah. So, you know, and I was generally interested.
Yeah, no, you ended up buying.
And I had money in the bank to put on a deposit, and I was seriously thinking about buying a piece of land because money will disappear and land doesn't. So I just thought I would put it away. So I'm actually at this lot that we ended up building, and Ruby asked me, how about your mom? And I go, what about my mom? I'm like, well, do you take care of her? I said, no, my dad died when he was 58. My mom is remarried. She's got his military pension, her Social Security, her husband's military pension, and his Social Security, and they live in Utah in a house that's paid for.
Yeah, nice.
And so I never thought about it. I go back and visit her, but she's totally taken care of. And his family was quite big and lived there locally and took care of them. And so I felt anything. She's like, well, what are you going to do? What happens if she needs you? And I'm just like, well, I guess I'll take care of her. Yeah. And that was a test. If I'd have said she's on her own, I might have been on my own.
So,
because to her, how I was going to treat my mother was a precursor to how I was going to treat her and her family.
Yeah, so that day you looked at land, you found the lot in this premium subdivision up here. You eventually built a house.
Big house. 8 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms.
Holy cow.
4 stories, 5 stories.
Do you remember what you spent building it back in the day? And what the lot cost?
The lot cost us, I think it was like a little over $50,000 US.
What did you put into the construction?
Probably a couple 100,000.
So 250, and if you sold it today?
Well, we just sold it.
Just sold it.
We just sold it.
Got market value.
We lost a little bit of money, probably because, well, when we were sailing for all those years, we weren't doing any maintenance on the house.
You talked about this, that the way they build houses here, you can't get into the walls. It's all concrete. You can't get to the wiring. You can't get to any ductwork. And the houses kind of deteriorate, and nobody really wants an older house. People want to buy a brand new piece of land and the greatest, latest, build their own. Yeah. And at some point, when we talk about how you found the land up in the mountains. Yeah. But let's proceed, because now you're not sailing, you're not a boater, you're a rafting company tycoon. That's my word.
To me, I probably could have made a lot more money if I'd have stayed in the factory and ran the business and pushed the sales. Yeah. But to me, well, my dad died at 58, like I mentioned. Right. I had a buddy of mine who was 70 at the time, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Glenn, all of my friends are dead." He said, "Not one of them said, I wish I could have mowed the lawn one more time. Right. Or I wish I could have, if I could have just worked a few more extra hours." It was always there. I wish I would have went to Tahiti. I wish I would have climbed the Alps. Yeah. So I was young at that time, and so I immediately changed my lifestyle that I was going to do all of this stuff.
Well, we just did a video on why you should retire young.
I probably went into some kind of quasi-retirement when I was 50. Okay. In my late 40s, probably. Did expeditions all over the world.
Crazy. So, it's a really exciting life. And then you've got 22 years retired in the Philippines, and we haven't even begun to talk about that you spent 7 of those years living on a boat.
Yeah, 5 of it totally living on a boat. 2 years having a boat. And when we had the monohull in Siargao, we had the house in Siargao, so we were living at the house, sailing on the boat. We did spend some nights there, but we didn't live on that boat. I could have, but we didn't.
So you met Ruby, you met her family. You had found a lot up here in the uptown area. She's got 5 and a 7, right? Yeah. And how long till you get married?
We met like December 29th, 2005. So really 2006, and we got married. The actual wedding date was in May of 2008.
So you're 18 years.
So two years. Yeah. 2 years of
2 years of back and forth.
And what we had to do is I had to get her a fiance visa. Yeah. But the first part of the fiance visa is I got to get her wedding annulled. Okay. Or a divorce.
You've got the A through Z Philippine experience going on here. You fiance visaed Ruby back to the United States, and you spent during the last 18 years. How much time did you spend in the United States?
Well, for probably, let's say, 8 years, we went back and forth every 6 months.
Every 6 months. So Ruby, when she talks to Chrissy, can speak to having been fiancé visaed back to the United States, what that was like, 6 months a year.
Living in the U.S.
Did you ever have her work, or she never worked?
No, never worked. She wanted a job because she wanted to contribute. And I told her that the reason I didn't want her to work was it would tie us down. Yeah. If I had a chance to go do something and travel, I didn't want to not go because she had a shift.
Now, you brought the kids with you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got married and you adopted the children here or in the United States?
In the United States. Okay. Always do the adoption in your home state. It's very easy. It might not be recognized in the Philippines, but they'll have a U.S. passport. Yeah. You'll actually get a new U.S. birth certificate issued. It'll say foreign born, but you'll be the father.
Wow. And then they went to school in the U.S. 6 months?
Yeah, we did
homeschooled?
6 months. We did 6 months at Roseville, and then 6 months we homeschooled.
And so you're still working at the factory. That's why you're going back and forth?
Yeah. So I was at the factory, for the 6 months, which was the busiest time of our year. I would get there in April, and I would leave around Halloween.
So let me ask you about your Filipino family and how they adapt and how they experience the USA. I mean, I'm sure Ruby will tell Chrissy her point of view, but from your point of view, what was it like for them, from your eyes? How do you think?
Well, from my eyes, it was wonderful because it was like discovering my youth all over again, getting to show them all the things that I like to see how they would like them. So as soon as we got to Oregon, it was the very end of the ski season. I took them all skiing. Yeah. And that was really fun. That was really fun. They caught on to it like unbelievable.
Did Ruby meet Filipino friends?
Yeah, there's a Filipino group that she ended up meeting. She had quite a group of girlfriends here that had moved to the U.S. that we stopped and visited as we traveled around. And there was quite a Filipino group in the small area where we live. So she made friends with them. But I've never been attached to the expat community here, and she's never been connected to the Filipino community there.
I think that's a positive thing.
We've always had Filipino friends that we've went and visited, but we were never like so tied in that we were like it was an umbilical cord to home. You know?
So a lot of men report problems when they bring their Filipino to the United States. From what you've seen, is there any secret to success?
Well, as you've mentioned in your videos, there's a dynamic when you're here. Like you're the
man.
You're the obstacle of admiration, and there's the girls that you can't believe.
They're not the obstacle, but the object.
Yeah, they're a dime a dozen, right? And and you're a rare commodity. Yes. Well, it's not the same back in the U.S. And I was concerned because I had employees that had gone through a divorce because their wife had got involved in just a new hobby and then got so involved with that hobby and then met somebody and then that caused a divorce. Sure. But the reason I didn't want Ruby to have a job or to go to college or all of that stuff, which I could have provided, is I was afraid of the outside influence of the West. I built an apartment in my factory, and I had a large house down on a river that was about an hour and a half drive from the factory. That was in the wilderness, completely off grid. Yeah. So we spent a good portion of our time down there. My wife, I taught her how to fish, and she just loves to trout.
How does she take to the whitewater rafting?
Oh, she loves it. Yeah. When I met her, one of the things is she did not know how to swim. And she's from the mountains up by Tinago Falls in Iligan. When I first met, she wasn't even comfortable. She didn't even like staying in a beach resort because she was uncomfortable. So to go from a person that was afraid of the water, that didn't know how to swim, and that was afraid of the water, to commanding a sailboat in the middle of the ocean for days and days without land.
There were times where she was out there driving the boat at night and you were sleeping.
Yeah, and then we'd take turns. She'd come and get me.
18 years, 7 on the water, so plus 2 since the water, so that's 9. So the first 9 years you weren't on the water.
Yeah.
And you were here raising a family.
My mom, her husband died, and she sold her house and moved in with us, and she traveled back and forth until she passed away.
Oh. And she liked it here.
She liked it so much that we were in the U.S. for one of our trips, and she had to have a surgery. And she was in the home recovering. And I went to my mom and I said, Mom, we'll do whatever you want, but there's going to come a time when you cannot travel. Do you want to be in the Philippines or do you want to be here with your family? Because she had 2 sisters alive at that time. And she looked at me, I want to be in the Philippines. Wow. It was like, and she went in to the gym and started working out like a crazy fool so she could get permission to fly back to the Philippines. Wow. So she lived here for probably 2.5 years after that before she passed away.
When did you fully retire?
Actually, I actually sold the company about a year ago.
Let me just ask you about Cagayan de Oro, those 9 years you're living here. Ruby's family is 2 hours away in Iligan. Right. You're still owning an adventure rafting company and doing trade shows here. Were you traveling with Ruby around the world and showing her the world?
Yeah, we had went to a couple of events together. We went to a Rafting World Championship in Korea, and I took a Filipino team with me. That was fun. I took her to Fiji twice, Australia, a lot of times to China. We'd stop and go to the factory. I take my mom and kids to the factory.
You and Ruby, let me ask you about this. You know, Chrissy and I have been together 1.5 years, and the give and take I have with Chrissy, you know, it doesn't feel different. I don't feel the age gap.
0 age gap.
Don't feel it, right?
No.
these 18 years of your relationship, the intimacy, the, you know, that I don't have that 18 years with a age gap relationship. How most of the guys watching, it's mostly men that watch our channel, and you know, like half of them have found a Filipina and they're thinking about breaking out of their box, moving here, bringing her back, and the other half haven't found one yet. But they're really interested in trying to visualize the life. You've had 18 years.
If I could really explain to them what it was like, they'd all be here.
Right. Don't come. You prefer they don't all come immediately, right? Just in small groups. Yeah.
You're going to be able to find someone beyond your dreams. We normally find classes. People will assimilate alike to alike. Well, here you can jump up a couple of strata compared to what you could find at home, but it will be equal here. Or you might be the top dog here, which is new. But you have to understand that what you are offering them, a simple, stable family life, some kind of financial security, a certain amount of love and devotion, and someone who can provide and protect is all they could ever dream of, because that is so rare here. In the Philippines, they have a, let's call it breadwinner culture. Not everybody in the family has a real job. A lot of times the breadwinner is one of the older girls, and she's supporting the whole family, the parents and the whole family. So for a girl to be educated, to be beautiful, to be sweet, and to be nice, and find somebody who can take care of her is incredibly rare. Now, in the U.S., what their dream is the bottom level of the standard. They want that, that's a given, then they want everything else on top of it, of which you can never satisfy that. How do I say this? In the U.S., it's like everybody's a Disney princess. And they think that living happily ever after is their birthright. So that anything that deviates from this perfectly dream world, they feel cheated. Where here, they are so grateful and so happy to just live the life. Taking care of you is their dream.
So even though Ruby's been to America and seen the wealth, and she's seen that you own a factory, and she's still just grateful for the simple thing.
I mean, like when we were in the U.S., I gave my kids a job to make some extra money, but their job was cleaning the toilets. Because I didn't want, and this is all of my kids, I never wanted them to think that they were better than anybody else.
What about finding the right family? They say when you meet a Filipino, you don't just meet the Filipino, you meet the family.
One of the very first trips I was here, I went to visit her family, and some of the kids weren't in school. So I asked, well, why isn't Felix in school? Why isn't Donna Joy in school? Well, we don't have enough money for the school fees because they have 10 kids, right? And the school fees were less than $10. So I told Ruby, I says, I'll pay all of that. All of her brothers and sisters and their kids, the direct family, if they need money for school, for uniforms, because it wasn't very much. You're talking about $50 per kid for the whole year. And so I said, I'll pay for education. When we built the big house, we built extra bedrooms for her brothers and sisters to go to college. So they could stay with us, and I will pay for their college. So, and I told them that I would pay for any emergency medical. I'm not going to pay for their sore throat and their runny nose. But if somebody has to be hospitalized, which you can get accepted here, but you don't leave the hospital until you've paid the bill, right?
So you've been everywhere in the Philippines. You've sailed all around Southeast
I've been
Asia.
most everywhere.
So let me just ask you, top 2 cities to retire if you want a breeze and you want to get out of the worst of the heat.
I'm not a big city person. So I myself would scratch out BGC and Makati.
Scratch them out.
Because if you like cities, if you're from a big city and you like the city hustle, go to the... But Manila's, the air quality is horrible.
Traffic.
And traffic. And what happens is If somebody comes up to you in Manila and they're really friendly, you're about to get calm.
Yeah, right. All over the world when people come up to you.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
If you come to Cagayan and somebody comes up to help you, you might have met a lifelong friend.
Yeah.
A modern city that has everything. And I wanted the city accoutrements, the best quality, cleanest city is Iloilo.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Bacolod has some mountains just outside of Bacolod that are nice.
Yeah.
Dumaguete has some mountain places
Valencia,
outside. Davao also.
Yeah.
Cagayan. But if you like a small town, clean, friendly, cool air, Malaybalay.
Oh. Not that.
Now, don't tell anybody.
Okay, don't tell us.
What I have found out in my sailing days is there are certain places around the Philippines that have enough of a tourism draw that has drawn enough expats that have created restaurants and lodges and stuff where you can get some of the cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I would recommend you pick one of those. Now, depending upon how isolated you want to be, which one I would pick. You know, you mentioned Port Barton, Siquijor.
Yeah.
Siargao is my favorite, but there's no real hospital on the island.
Okay, so those 9 years, you're 6 months and 6 months, you're raising kids. The kids are still, they're only like 13 and 15 when you decide that you need to be a boater. What happened there?
Well, no, they were pretty much out of school by the time what happened is I'd always dreamt of having a sailboat. So we bought a small little trailerable 22-foot swing keel sailboat in Oregon.
Okay.
And we would go up and leave it at the lake, and every day after work, we would drive up, sail the lake, have a barbecue on the boat, and come home. And I had a couple of really good friends who owned a boat and were sailing around the South Pacific. And one of the brothers got cancer. Well, after a few years of doing that, they just go, you know what? I've got cancer. I can't sail. Why don't you buy my half of the boat? I'm like, well, that's perfect. I know the boat works. I know who owns it. And I don't have to pay all the expenses because I'm not going to be around it. So I bought half of that boat. The boat was in Fiji.
We've got this arc of your story. We're now at about 2013. It sounds. When did you buy the boat in Fiji? Do you remember?
No, we bought that probably 2010.
Okay.
And we bought the other boat 2 years later, 2012. I think.
And the boating story is going to come to an end in 2022. Typhoon Odette.
Yeah.
There was a time that I really get depressed.
I cried because I think of them.